What's up, guys? Buddyfight News Corner with another deck profile. This is Executioners. For those of you that don't know, Executioners is a mixed world that you start with 8 life and 4 gauge. I don't know what Bushy was thinking with this, but starting with 4 gauge is ridiculous, and you can use anything with Executioner. Buddy is whatever this Katana World guy is called. I don't know any of their names. For this, the Zero Ninja, it's a 3-1-1, or 2-1-1, and you can pay a gauge and mill 2 and put in the soul of a monster on your field, and it gives it soul guard, and then once you hit 15 and drop, it gives it an extra crit. Giving this to anything with double attack is ridiculous. You can, if you ever put this in the size 3 or the Cougar size 2, you just get so much value out of it. Though if your opponent does respond to this effect, if they kill what you were going to put this into the soul of, you still have to pay the cost, which is kind of poopy. And then the 8 gate searchers. They're both pretty much when it pay a gauge and when it enters, search the gate. This one's call cost is pay a gauge. This one's optional. This one's a 5k power. They both do the exact same thing, which is search a gate from the deck. You pretty much never not open with the gate. And then for the Buddy, when it's a 2/2/2. When it enters, mill 2 and then draw a card. It's just really nice because it replaces itself and it mills 2. And Silhouette Leroy. This is an Eligos that's free that you don't have to call into the center. If you have 4 or more spells in drop, you can redirect an attack to it by calling it from your hand, and it's got 2 crit. It's pretty much just a better Eligos that can't return to your hand. One of the Legend Dragon thing, when it's in the drop, pay a gauge, you can call it, and when it enters the field, mill 3 and take a damage. You really just use the little light and put this into the gauge, pay the gauge, and then call this. So it's like you never actually took any damage. And then for the Danger World Cougar, the 7/1/2, 1 gauge call cost. When it hits a monster or deals damage, draw a card and gain a life. If you have 10 and drop or the gate, which is pretty much always. I don't like the other Danger World monster just because it doesn't actually do anything other than try to help you defend, and you don't really want defense when you're trying to kill them. You just spam the Hellish Shield to kill them. And the only other size 2 is the other Bull Dragon one, pay a gauge, mill 2 to kill size 1 or less. It's pretty good. I like this one a lot better than the other size 2. I don't put the size 3 in here just because it's 3 gauge and it doesn't have soul guard. So unless they're playing something with a closed center, it's just going to die. For the Gate of Verdict Judgment, you can mill 2, and if there's an Executioner among them, you gauge 1, which is all the time. And then you can pay 3 gauge to add an Executioner from your drop zone to your hand. Then if you have 15 or more in drop zone, draw a card. It's an armor reuse that's 3 gauge, so you just recur pretty much anything you need at the time, whether it be more gauge excel if you ever need that for some reason, the shield, or more monsters in case they kill them all. For Damien's Decision, mill 2, and if there's an Executioner among them, charge 1 and draw 1. It's just more mail cards. For Demon Way, however you pronounce this card, you can cast it to call a Skull Warrior or Executioners from your drop. So it's pretty much free monsters. And at the beginning of your turn, you can pay 2 gauge and add it from your drop to your hand. You don't use it for that effect. You almost never use that because that's just too much. You want to use your gauge for your shields and your monsters. For Hellish Shield is one of the most broken shields in the game. 1 gauge, if you have an Executioner on your field, nullify the attack. Then if you have 10 or more, Gauge 2. Then if you have 15 or more, it can't be nullified and you deal a damage. So you just spam this and you keep adding this back every turn with the gate, and you just continuously burn them to death until you impact them. The only shield you can ever play first turn, Shadow Crusader, mill 3, reduce the next damage you take by 3. It's not the best, but it's, again, the only shield you can use first turn. And it's an easy 4 cards and drop without ever actually having to do anything on your turn. Inferno Rule, it's a Death Grip. You have to have an Executioner to cast it. 1 gauge to destroy size 2, but if you have 20 or more, it destroys any card instead of just size 2s. So you can use this to pop items, spells, or even big monsters if you need to. 3 Demon Way, however you pronounce this. 1 gauge, mill 2, draw a card, and then if you have 10 or more and drop, draw another. It's a nice one. You usually get 10 and drop pretty easily. If anything, you cast this turn 2. If you go first, you might not always have 10 and drop. So this is the reason why you don't play 4 of it, because you don't want to always open with it, but it's a nice card to see when you actually get it. And then Own Style, Sliding Fang. You negate a destruction. You nullify the destruction of any execution on your field, whether it be the set spell, monsters, anything on your field. So you just it makes it so you can actually swing with Cougar and them not just instantly kill it. And nullifying the destruction means you don't take penetrate, which is really good. We got one little light. I might bump this up more, but I don't know. You put a monster from your deck into the gauge or the drop zone, you gain a life. You use this to put the Legend World one in to the gauge. That way it's a free monster whenever you want it. And it also one of the only cards in Executioners that gains you life. This and Cougar are the only things that gain you life. And you starting at 8, you kind of need some life gain. For items, it's just the 4 Danger World item. It's a 2/2, and then once you reach 15 a drop, it gets +2 crit. It's really nice for damage, but the 2k power is kind of bad. But it does help a lot against open center decks because swinging for 4 is pretty good. And we have 3 of the Impact Monster. The Impact Monster is really good, but it's not the greatest because of the on destruction when it enters, it destroys everything. It's really easy to counter kill. It's 3 gauge and you either sack a monster or the gate. And if you have 20 more drop when it enters, it blows up all monsters. And then when it attacks, if either you or your opponent have 30 or more in drop, your opponent cannot use counters. So once this starts swinging, they can't do anything to it. But they can do something when you call it, when the on destruction skill happens, or in any of the other play timings before you actually get to attack. So this doesn't always actually get to hit, but it at least board wipes everything. And not many decks actually have the ability to stop this. I think this deck right now is like 64 cards? Either 64 or 63. As long as you don't aim to mill yourself out, you should be good. I've gone close to milling out, but I don't think with this version I've actually milled myself out. No, you usually just burn them with the shield until they die. Yeah, that's Executioners. We should have more decks soon. Bye News Corner, sign off.